On purposers, give yourself a pat on the back because you are right here, right now, for a reason. Welcome to the On Purpose podcast, where together we'll empower ourselves and others to live lives with more passion and purpose. How you doing this morning, Jared?
I'm fantastic, Ali. How are you, my friend?
Doing fantastic as well. Getting ready to hop into our purposeful practice review from last week, handling hatred and finding love. What insights did you have last week, Jared?
I think, for me, I put out a little quick social video, a little vlog for about 3 minutes, just trying to encourage our politicians, our public servants, and those that are truly in positions to compromise and collaborate with others that have power to come up with some solutions for what's plaguing our country right now, specifically all the shootings and the gun violence. I'm tired of hearing the people that are elected pick sides and nobody can get along with each other and we can't come up with common sense solutions. So for me, I'm trying to maybe call out a little bit and bring awareness to the fact that if we all sit separately hating, our children suffer the most because we're modeling for them that behavior, which then repeats cycle after cycle, generation after generation. So for me, I just been kind of focused on bringing some awareness and really showing people there's other ways to solve some of these problems.
Nice.
We'll see if it works, but if nothing else, we're speaking up for our on-purpose community and those that believe through collaboration and creativity we can really solve some problems.
Yeah, definitely.
How about you?
Small acts, big impacts, right?
Yes,
Consistently.
Sir.
Same. I actually dropped a vlog on my Instagram. Three ways we can, or three positive outcomes of mass shootings, and talked about how we unite. Yep. We tend to not take things as for granted, and how lots of positive action result. People start going to church, donating to church, coming together, helping rebuild. So really challenged my audience to think of ways that we can have these results without needing a tragedy. And of course, consistently hitting on the small acts. Really grateful to have a great community to where I don't really experience much hate anymore. Don't come across too much hate. It's very rare, but it's primarily because I continue to execute on small acts like the daily DAT-GRAT interviews, like getting in here and speaking with our on-purpose community once a week. So,
and it's the way you've set yourself up, because there's plenty of hate still around you. You've just done a good job filtering it and redirecting towards the positive side of things. And that's what we talked a lot about in that episode is let's quit needing tragedy to bring people together. Let's quit needing a tragedy, because realistically, when the tragedy happens, it's simple, right? Before the tragedy, all we focus on is difference. You're different than me. You're different here. You're different. Tragedy strikes. Boom. Now what do? Oh, we find out we actually have things in common.
Yeah.
So let's quit waiting for tragedy to find out we actually have things in common. We can actually enjoy each other in this little journey of life. So get in there, listen to the Handling Hatred, Finding Love episode. I think you're going to find some good thoughts, some different ways of looking at things. And then we want to hear from you guys. Get that homework in, submit it to us, and let's make sure we're moving forward.
Yeah, and speaking of submitting the homework, we have our first giveaway winner. Courtney submitted her purposeful practice for Small Acts Big Impact episode and won a B-Nails t-shirt. So shout out to B-Nails. Always a great reminder to be your best. Intentional vaporization. And for today's episode, purposeful practice giveaway for DAT-GRAT t-shirt. Daily action towards gratitude. So get your purposeful practice in, and we are now giving incentives for getting that in. So
and if you want to hear what Courtney submitted to win, get on our social media, check out our pages. We did a little video kind of sharing her story, which is very powerful and humbling that she trusts us to share that. And we want to just recognize the impact she made for the young man she was talking about. And again, small acts make big impact over and over. So submit your work, share with other people, and let's get moving on this on-purpose mission to create the lives we really want to have.
Let's do it. So today's episode is resiliency. Quit or keep moving forward. Now, first, let's start with how we define resiliency. Jared and I were just talking about it. And for me, resiliency means the ability to continue moving forward when you experience setbacks, when you experience difficulties. Jared had a pretty similar definition, yeah?
Yeah, I think resiliency to me is how do you handle things that go wrong or unexpected for you in whatever journey it is, whether it's a relationship, a career, life in general. Resiliency is what do you do when things you didn't expect to be there appear?
Yeah. Yeah, and I also got the Google definition just so we make sure we're all on the same line. And Google says that resiliency is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness. And I couldn't agree more. So we really want to dive in to resiliency today because sometimes it can be hard to decide whether or not you should be resilient in a certain endeavor, whether it's a relationship, whether it's something with your career, or if it's best to move on from that. So wanted to get started and pick your brain a little bit, Jared. If perhaps you have some experiences or stories in your life where you used resiliency, where maybe you weren't sure if you should be resilient and persevere through whatever it was, and then it paid off when you did. Do you have anything like that?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing to me, and I think this is a mistake a lot of people make, is they think they'll be resilient at the time they need to be. Right? They just think like, oh, I'm kind of tough, I'm resilient, I can bounce back, so I won't practice it, but then somehow I think I'm going to have it when I need it most. And I'm here to tell you, if you don't practice being resilient every day, if you don't practice the skills needed to make you tough, odds are you're not going to be tough when it comes time to it. You're going to be able to quit, right? Because quitting is always an option. There's that quote out there that quitting is not an option. Biggest lie we can ever tell ourselves. Quitting is always an option.
Yeah.
It's the easiest. It immediately releases the pain you're under, and you can quit all day long. So it's always an option. So how do you become resilient? To me, you got to practice resiliency. And I would say for me, probably the place I learned this most was in my police career, right? Just because every shift you go on, every call you go to may be the one out of 1,000,000 incidents that change your life forever. It could be the one person that intends to not let you go home after that shift. Keep in mind, the other 999,000 calls you went on were legitimate citizens that needed help. But every now and then there's that one. So resiliency for me was I always had to prepare that if tonight when I went to work and I met that one that intended to take me from my family, to take me from life, that I had been prepared to be resilient. So that meant I had to work out each day. It meant I had to eat properly. It meant I had to let my family know I love them every day. Even though the vast majority of days out of my career for 21 years, nobody ever tried to kill me. But I couldn't get lax in my preparation knowing that my resiliency may be tested at some point. And I think sometimes that's where we struggle in life is because we're not tested every day. We lack in our preparation. We stop doing the little things that make you resilient. Reading, learning, trying new things, meeting new people, working out, watching your diet. And then suddenly when you're faced with, oh my gosh, now I have to be resilient, I haven't practiced it. I haven't done little things that get me there. And you're not in full control.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I have experienced resiliency paying off most every single time that I choose to be resilient. An example that I can think of is with my career. I chose to leave my oil and gas career and start my own business. Luckily, I had a nice cushion of savings, but I chose to be resilient and not pay myself for 7 months. And I definitely was like, am I doing the right thing? I'm not using my degree, and was really nervous. But I chose to stay resilient, and sure enough, month 8, we were able to to pay ourselves a small salary and keep the ball rolling. But during that period, it was definitely hard to stay resilient, and quitting was definitely an idea that came up a lot.
So here, I want to follow up on that. I love it, right? First, you said two things. You chose to be resilient. How did you choose that? Right? Because I think too many people have an excuse, and if this offends you, and I apologize, but I'm not really sorry, I'll be honest with you. It's easy to sit back and go, oh man, he's so resilient, he's so tough, like he just has it, I don't have this. We all have it. But you're absolutely 100% right when you said you chose to be resilient.
Yep.
So what was it that helped you choose that? Why when faced with quitting, right? Because now, if finances are a great place, people will quit all the time. You ventured out into the unknown where there's potential for big reward and legacy you created on your own, or you can go back to where you were, which is safety and security. When you're faced with, do I be resilient and continue on my path, or do I quit and go back to safety? Why was it you chose to be resilient?
It was my awareness of how I would feel with my choice. I knew that if I chose to move back to Texas and choose security and get in an oil and gas job and do what I already knew, that I would always be wondering, what if I had taken that risk? What if I did go all in? And just knowing myself, I knew that would have driven me crazy. And honestly, I knew that there was no better time. I was 24, single, didn't really have anything to tie me down. So I played out the worst case scenario in my head. Worst case scenario, I deplete all of my savings. This doesn't take off, and then I can go get another job in safety and security, right? So I weighed out my options, and having my own awareness, I was like, I know I'm going to be mad at myself if I take the security route. So I'm going to choose to be resilient.
I love it. And I would even add a step further. I think awareness is a good term, but then you also had purpose, right? Your purpose was you truly believe in the cannabis industry. You truly believe it helps people. You believe your product is safer and better so that people get the best benefits, right? And that's where we drop the ball many times, and where we can stumble is if I'm faced with that moment, right? Whether it's in business where I'm faced with that moment of, okay, money's tight, things aren't going well, I have to throw capital in to get going. Do I deplete my savings and push forward, or do I fall back safety? When we get to that moment in police work where I show up and, oh man, this person intends to take my life, this person does not want me going home, do I back down and cower away, or do I fight? Do I go forward? To me, it's easier to choose being resilient and fighting versus quitting if you know your purpose. Right? If you know so because you knew your purpose, it's easy to go forward. And for those of you watching on YouTube, I'm wearing my Superman shirt, and that is not by accident. And I'll share this with you guys. Being in police work where I know danger lurks around every corner, potentially, I had a moment when my kids were small, and we had just moved here, and I went up to visit them, and they were at their grandma's up in Cheyenne, and their great-grandma was there, and I come over to visit them, and they had made me a Velcro Superman patch, and it went on my vest, and I literally wore it on my vest every day of every shift for the last 18 years. And it wasn't because I felt like I was Superman or I was greater and I had all these magical powers. It was a reminder that I was Superman to my kids. And that as their dad, that's how they viewed me. And I wore that under my uniform. Nobody else could see it, but it was there as a cue that if I was faced with being resilient and fighting for the life we have, or quitting and just accepting, I had to choose to fight because other people saw me as a superhero.
That's a powerful why.
And I think that's where I want our listeners to get. If you struggle, if you know you're quitting, if you know you have a history of backing down when tough things appear, I will almost guarantee you it's because you don't know why you're doing what you do. Yeah. And when you create purpose, and your purpose is bigger than you will sacrifice more. But if your purpose is only you, it's only tangible things, is this amount of money, I want to drive that car, I want to live in this house, it's easy to quit when things get tough.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's one reason is you don't have your why, right? You don't have purpose behind what you're doing. And I think another reason why people quit is because they don't put themselves in opportunities often enough to where they have to choose whether to be resilient or to quit in these difficult situations, whether it be physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Good example is I just did my first sweat lodge over at Sunrise Ranch this past weekend, and a buddy of mine who used to live there told me that it's going to be a sweat lodge. In my head, I thought it would be, kind of light sauna, guided meditation. Long story short, this was a very spiritual experience. It was extremely hot, very hot stones that had been in a fire for hours. They put water in there, steam, very small space. And as soon as he closed that, it was the hottest environment I've ever experienced in my life. I mean, like a sauna, steam room, maybe times 1.5, almost 2. It was extremely hot to where immediately that voice came in my head. Like, am I going to make this? Do I need to ask to get out of this right now? Like, is this even possible? All of these doubts, but I'm used to that. I'm used to that, hearing that voice, because I'm constantly putting myself in these tough situations where that voice comes up and I say, nah, not today, motherfucker. You go back in your place, and I'm choosing to stay in here and I'm choosing to be resilient. But I have the opportunities often, whether at trials, whether on sales calls, in the office, deciding to stay late, just have 75 hard, deciding to sit down and get these 10 pages done, go get that second workout done, choosing to be resilient and push through adversity, as well as having a purpose. And you're going to be one resilient person living with a lot of purpose.
Well, let me just follow up on that. If you look at your days and you don't have anything that tests your toughness, you don't have anything that makes you want to quit, you're not practicing being resilient. Right? The mere fact that you are avoiding things that may test you, you've already quit. Right? And think about this for adults. And I see a lot of it in my peers that are parents. Their whole life is raised around their kids, which is fine. Like, I love my kids and I prioritize my kids, but not above myself. If I'm not growing, well, then what am I telling my kids? I'm showing them that at some point you kind of quit avoiding tough things. You quit avoiding this because, well, it's their job to do tough things. I'm there to support them. No, the best way to support them is challenge yourself, because the reality is, if you are not practicing overcoming things, whatever it is, in life, relationships, physical fitness, nutrition, mental challenges, reading, learning, if you're not practicing growing and being resilient, you are practicing quitting by default. Mm-hmm. You're either doing one or the other. Yeah. Right? And too many of us want these days that are perfect and there's no challenges, and we all know that's not the case. That's not how the world works. So then we're really going to be measured on, how do we handle the hard things? How resilient are you? Yep. And quit spending all your days looking for the easy path, man, because if the easy path is there's going to be a million people on there. Mm-hmm. Get out and test yourselves, challenge yourself, prove to yourself that you are resilient, And for me, one of the best ways to do it is going on my runs. I hate running. I hate it with a passion. I'd much rather go on a 12-hour road trip than run for 45 minutes. But I do it because every time I do it, I go a little further and I go a little faster, I fought the urge to quit. I fought the urge to give up. I practiced being resilient. So now when I go to a business meeting and it doesn't go my way, or something isn't the way I thought it should be, I don't freak out. I don't back up and quit. I'm like, okay, there's an obstacle. Man, I just ran. I overcame that voice of wanting to quit there. And okay, let me tackle this problem. And then it starts to become contagious in your life, where you actually like having some problems. because you get to practice learning new skills. And if you're a parent, I'm telling you right now, the best thing you can do for your kids is model for them how do you handle adversity, how do you overcome things so that they, without having to be learned, without a formal lesson, they're watching and you're modeling the very behavior you're hoping your kids pick up.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing you said reminded me of a book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And he talks about how a lot of our society has this misconception that once we get to this point, we're not going to have any problems anymore. Life is always going to be good. And he said that's never, ever the case. You just have to choose what kind of bullshit, aka problems, you enjoy dealing with.
Love it.
What types of things do you enjoy being resilient through? Because there's never a point where you're not going to have problems or bullshit. And I totally agree. Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. So what about this, Jared? What about experiences where maybe the right choice is to choose not to be resilient? For example, an abusive relationship, like my mother, I really, really commend her because she was very, very resilient for years and years with my verbally and physically abusive father. But she chose to stay with him and be resilient for a very, very long time until one day, he was physically abusive, busted her head open. It was bad. She decided that's where she's drawn the line. She decided she was not going to be resilient with that relationship anymore, although she wanted so badly to stay together for my brother and I, and she had tolerated so much for so many years. I do believe that at that point, she made the right decision to quit on that relationship. And I believe that that was a perfect example of when you have to choose quitting over resiliency, when the trade-off isn't there anymore. So I think that she just kind of knew that was kind of the last straw. But for our listeners, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a career endeavor, what do you think are kind of signs or signals we should look for when the right decision is to quit?
Yeah, and I think I would even reframe your example of your mom. She may have quit on the relationship, but why did she quit? Because she was showing resilience in the value of her life. She was showing resilience and being out of that because she could get more out of life. You know what I mean? I think, and to me, that's how I see quitting and resilience. They go hand in hand, right? Sometimes you can quit by showing resilience somewhere else, right? So she didn't just quit, and quitting for her at that point would have said, this is my life. This is all I have to offer the world. This is apparently how I'm supposed to be treated. I have no more value than this. So I quit and I'll stay here forever. I would argue she showed resilience by saying, nope, I deserve better than this. I'm moving on over here. So technically she quit in one aspect to show resilience in another. So I think, to me, that's what I look at is when I'm faced with, do I need to fight through this or is it time to move on? I look at, is it serving me in my life? Is this something that's beneficial to me, or is it time to move on? And I'll tell you, for me, probably the best example I have is my sophomore year in college. I had my whole life thought I was going to be a professional baseball player. And my first year at college, I did really well. And I thought, okay, this is still possible. And then my second year, things hit a downturn. I had some stuff going on in my life. I didn't get along with the coach. Didn't enjoy it anymore. It was making me miserable. So it was time to move on. So I ended up enlisting in the military just to get out of there and create a new life. So I technically quit. Like I finished up. Like I was done playing baseball. But I think I had taken the journey to the point where it was now time to move on. There was nothing else left for me to learn there. So I think that's kind of what I base it on is, have I gotten everything I need to out of this, and now is it time for me to move on, or does staying here start to limit me? Because I don't think quitting is necessarily a bad term. I think quitting, if you know you could have done more, is bad. I think quitting if you could have pushed harder is bad. But I think, just like we talked about in other episodes, everything has a season. And it takes maturity to recognize, okay, this relationship has gone as far as it can go. My career in baseball, getting 2 years out of college was probably as far as my talent was going to take me. there's only so much I can do here. I'm just not the most gifted athlete anymore. There's kids that are way better than me. So now it's time to move on so I technically quit there to move into something else. But I was always moving forward. And I think that's what resiliency does for you, is it allows you to move forward, even though you may have to give up on some stuff that you had previously done.
Yeah.
I think to me, truly quitting means I quit trying. I quit moving forward, and I just accept whatever's out here. And life is too short for that.
Yeah. So when you say seeing whether or not your current endeavor serves you or not, how do you identify that for our listeners? What can we share with them when analyzing a certain situation of making the better decision of when to be resilient to go through it or when to quit?
Yeah, I think it's going to tie into self-awareness first and foremost. You got to know what it is you're trying to do, where you're trying to get to, what are your skills, what are your strengths, what are you working on? And if I know that, then I can evaluate, okay, this endeavor this is worth pushing harder for. But if I get myself into something, I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't align with my values, this doesn't align with my beliefs, I don't enjoy being here, then it's time to move on. But that requires you to have kind of a game plan in life, a good identity or a good idea of who you are. Because that's also what all your decisions come back to, right? If I don't know who I am, and in every group I'm somebody different or I'm just searching, it's hard to know when to push through and when to quit. Because what am I basing it off of? Your opinion, his opinion, that opinion? So I'm always in flux. When I know who I am, I know what I believe, I know where I want to go in life, and I know generally how I'm going to get there. Well, now when things get tough, I have a different balance point for my decision making, right? I know why I'm doing what I do. I have my purpose. And now I can look and evaluate, okay, is this the best route to push through this? Or do I need to pull back for a second, learn something new, and try to get around it? But I'm able to consciously evaluate because I know who I am. And to me, that's, we have so many episodes now, we're on 25, and a lot of them go back to a simple thing of self-awareness. Knowing who you are helps frame how you handle a lot of other things in life.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Amen. I think you're exactly right on that one. Is having the self-awareness and then also awareness of the situation. Really being aware and being able to analyze the pros and cons of each one. Being able to run a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, trade-offs, pros and cons. And yeah, really doing some self-awareness. I always go back to whenever I'm feeling a little bit lost and like I don't know what's the right decision, I always go back to self-awareness exercise. Read through old journal entries. What goals have I set for the year? What whys have I written down? Why am I doing? And it is a healthy practice. We are living beings, and our minds change. We have 70,000 thoughts a day, I think, on average. So it's really important to check in with yourself and study yourself. Literally study yourself. Do purposeful practice like this. See what your answers are. I mean, sometimes I go back, even just a couple months ago, read stuff I wrote, and was like, whoa, that's where my head was at. That's self-analysis. That's being self-aware and seeing what you're going for and why.
And I think another big thing is, who are you spending your time with? Who are you surrounded by? Are these people that demonstrate resilience that you watch and like, man, he faced this and overcame it. She faced this and was able to learn a new skill and got over the obstacle? Or do you surround yourself with people that back down at the first sign of an obstacle, the first sign of resistance, and they're typically the people that are going to be the victims of life? Oh, I would do this, but that happened. I would have been here, but this happened. No, we all would have been somewhere else. If only what? If only you worked past the obstacle. So to me, that's another way to practice your resilience and to really start helping you move forward in that is being around resilient people, studying resilient people, learning from them. We're at such a great age where we have so much information at our fingertips. Even if you don't know anybody that's super resilient or that you're not sure of, there's stars out there, there's podcasts, there's YouTube videos where you can learn from people that have overcome great obstacles. So for me, one of the things I do is I'm very purposeful about objects in my life. Like my tattoos have special meaning to me. They're designed to help me get over obstacles. Shirts I'll wear sometimes are designed, if I know I have a tough day coming up, it's designed to remind me of my purpose. So resiliency isn't just out there in the world. You can set things up to remind yourself to fight when you may want to quit. And so be very purposeful in that. What kind of music do you listen to? What kind of voices are you putting in your head? What kind of podcasts are you listening to? What kind of social media are you consuming? All of that helps build resiliency. It's a skill. It's not innately in some and not in others. It's literally a skill we can all have. But like any other skill, it's perishable and it requires practice.
Yeah, no, I love that you brought that up, is that it's not only your inner circle of people, but your inner circle of consumption, what you're consuming from your shows, podcasts, music. I mean, check out the shows that you watch. I guarantee there's probably some elements of a certain character that manifests inside you if you watch a show religiously. You know, if you're watching a show, I'm sure you're picking up certain things, even certain language. So that's really important. You definitely want to be aligned with resilient people.
And I think that's why, like, if you look traditionally, what was Avengers? I think Avengers just eclipsed like the biggest box office take ever. What is their story? They're average people that find a superpower that overcome adversity. For the most part, right? Like, I'm not the biggest superhero buff, but that's generally it, right? Like, Peter Parker was in the library, got bit by a spider, gets special powers, overcomes adversity. Superman was born on some other planet, gets superpowers. We're all superpowers. We're all superheroes.
Oh, yeah.
If we practice our superpower, what is your superpower? We're all different.
Yeah.
But instead of sitting there watching a big screen going, boy, I wish I was a superhero, be a superhero. Mm-hmm. You are a superhero to somebody, guaranteed.
And it's important to realize that it's okay to quit, especially if you're not used to being resilient, to where you want to be putting yourselves in a position to where you quit. Frankly, I love when I get pushed so hard to where I have to quit, because it's rare now. I've been very privileged to have a lot of experiences to where I get pushed to the brink. But like this sweat lodge, I was pushed to that brink to where I actually did. I did say I need to exit, and it was the guy's like, "Oh, this is our break time." But in my head, I was ready to quit. It just so happened that round of the sweat lodge was complete. But I got taken to that point, and I was like, "Wow, what an opportunity! What an opportunity to get pushed to that limit to quit." So I just want to remind our listeners out there that if you're you attempt to do a run, or you attempt to rekindle a relationship, whatever it is, and at some point you have a setback and you quit in that moment, that's okay. That means that you pushed yourself to the point that you would quit. Now it's time, hey, self-awareness, regroup. Why did I quit? What happened? And then continue to be resilient. So just a reminder there that it's like Jared was saying, quitting isn't necessarily a bad thing. You just need to make sure that when you quit, you analyze and see why and how you can continue to be resilient without quitting.
Yeah, and I think here's how I would frame that. Until you get to the point where you even want to quit, right? Whether it's physical exertion, the sweat lodge, going back to school, whatever it is you're doing, until you reach the point that you start thinking, man, I should quit, you're in your comfort zone, right? You're already doing things that you've already been good at, which is why you haven't thought about quitting, because I'm already good. I've already been here. However, you are not growing. It's once you leave your comfort zone and now quitting starts to pop in your head, right? Whether you're running a little further, a little faster, you're sweating a little longer. The fact that you're starting to think about quitting now because you went further than you had been means you're growing. Right? We have this, we stay too much in our comfort zone, and that actually inhibits your growth. Right?
Oh, yeah.
You will not grow more if you're in your comfort zone.
Oh, yeah.
That comfort zone means you are comfortable being there. Mm-hmm. Growth occurs when you move out of that and you become uncomfortable. So I personally, love when I start thinking about quitting.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's
because it means I've just challenged myself. I'm in a new place. So this whole endeavor, retiring early from law enforcement to start my own businesses, to run a couple businesses, there's many days I think about quitting. Many days.
Yeah.
Many days I look at my bank account and I'm like, damn, I remember when I had a lot more money in there. I remember when every 2 weeks deposits showed up.
Yep.
And I think about quitting. And then I think, wait a second, why did I start to begin with? Because I believed I was capable of more. Why did I leave to begin with? Because I felt like I was being boxed in and I wanted to get out and make a bigger difference in the world. Oh, that's right. Oh, it's time to be resilient. Oh, all this thought about quitting means I'm being challenged. I'm being challenged to be better financially. I'm being challenged to take risk, to call people and have them tell them no, they're not interested in me, have people turn me down, be rejected. I'm taking risk and putting out podcasts to hope people come and find value in this.
Yep.
Not laugh at us and call us a bunch of idiots, right? I'm taking risk. I'm out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I literally think about quitting as probably more so than most people because I'm trying to grow every day. And that's where I want people to get. Quitting is not negative. Quitting shouldn't be something we avoid at all costs. I want to think about quitting because then I know I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm challenged. And that's how you get the most out of this life. Staying in your comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah, and remember, everyone's comfort zone is different. You know, with Jared, 21-year police officer, career at MMA, lots of adversity that he's overcome. So new endeavors for him risks and actions may be a lot larger than most. But if you're not used to that, start where you can. Maybe you're out of your comfort zone. Maybe you've been trying to become healthier and you don't work out often. Small acts, the book Atomic Habits I recently finished reading is great. It talks about small, consistent actions are the key to having massive impact, just like a few other episodes. So if you can't do 2 minutes, if that's too hard for you, start with 5. If that's too hard, start with 1. Build up from there. Meditation, let's say you're trying to get more spiritual. If you can't meditate for 5 minutes, if that's so out of your comfort zone, start with 1. You don't have to take these massive risks and massive actions in order to make progress, but you do need to at least make small, consistent actions and make sure that you're pushing that quit voice forward. If your voice is already trying to quit because you're such an ADD person, you're trying to meditate there, try 1 minute. After a week, try 2 minutes. Start building up. So I just want to remind everyone that no matter where you're at, if you never put any adversity or never execute on resiliency in your life, guess what? There's still a point for you. If you're a super high achiever, you got quitting and resilience all day, there's a place for you as well to level that up. So just remember that no matter where you're at in life, you can start now and you can use resiliency to move forward.
Right. It's the exercise is the perfect example for me. I can't tell you how many times I hear people say, I would work out, I just don't have time. You have 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Even if today you just start with going on a walk for 5 minutes, that was better than no minutes yesterday. And then, eventually 5 becomes 7, and it becomes 8, and it becomes 10. And then you're like, I'm walking 20 minutes. Maybe if I run 10 minutes, I'll be a little better. And then you run, right? That's small steps. But every time you take that and you look quitting in the eye and you move a little bit forward, you're practicing being resilient. And that's what I want people to understand is resiliency is a skill. You either practice it or it diminishes, but it will not stay the same. You cannot be the same resilient person at 45 that you were at 18 if you haven't practiced overcoming things for 30 years, 28 years, whatever the hell that math is. You've got to practice it, and so seek that out. Seek out learning new things, surrounding yourself with new people, reading books, exercising, dieting, paying attention to nutrition, whatever it is that you want in life, have a purpose, set some goals, and challenge yourself a little bit.
Amen. Yeah, at the end of the day, it might be a good idea to ask ourselves, how was I resilient today? Where and how was I tough today? So speaking about end of day, let's get in the purposeful practice.
Yeah, let's do it.
So first piece of the purposeful practice is to take inventory of the times in your life where you have used resiliency and it paid off. Second piece is ask yourself, where can you be more resilient in your life to help you live with more purpose? And then again, email your findings to onpurpose.official@gmail.com. One lucky winner is going to win a DAT Grat, Daily Action Towards Gratitude t-shirt for submitting your purposeful practice.
Yeah, and that's the key thing that we're really after here, community, is we want to share thoughts, ideas, have you think maybe a little differently, or be like, hey, I even disagree with you guys. You're fine. I love disagreement. I'm okay with that. We don't have all the answers. We're sharing our experiences and our practices to build these skills. But it's going to require you to also practice, which is why the purposeful practice is so important, because now you're taking thoughts and ideas, you're putting them on paper, emailing them in. Now you have a chance to be accountable. And once you start to share that you want more in life with other people that also want more in life, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised at the result and who you start to attract in your world. Because energy is contagious, and when we put ourselves out there and we start attracting other people like that, and we join communities like this, we're all going to get better together.
Amen.
Cool. So please remember, the cost to be part of the community is like, share, comment, and subscribe to the podcast. Let others know about it. Let them know where you're headed with your personal goals, your practices, what you're wanting to get out of life, and invite them to the community, because there's room for everybody. Like Ali said, I don't care if you're a high-end performer or you're struggling to get started. We are a community where everybody is welcome. Speaking of that, October 19th, we will be doing our first On Purpose workshop here in Fort Collins. It's a Saturday. It'll go from 8 to noon. We will finish up getting the flyer put together and out on Eventbrite. Check in on our social pages, both our personal, and we'll put it on the On Purpose Instagram page to get registered and reserve your spot. You will leave that 4 hours with a blueprint and step-by-step of your own ideas and thoughts on how to create your most purposeful life. So I'm excited for that, and I'm excited to meet all of you in person and actually share a good time with you.
I know. I can't wait.
All right, team. Remember, life is far too short to live any other way than on purpose. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Get that practice in.